Everyone's been talking about the unicorn that is Victor Wembanyama, and rightfully so. The 7'4" San Antonio Spurs rookie center has been defying the law of physics on a nightly basis. But don't let this distract you from the fact that another generational big man is also currently playing his first official season of NBA basketball this year, and that is OKC Thunder big man Chet Holmgren. Well, Holmgren is basically locked into at least a top 2 finish for the Rookie of the Year award, yet Wembanyama's raw box score numbers and highlight reels have practically cemented the French big man into prohibitive favorite status as the season's best rookie, especially for an award where voters have historically regarded winning as less of an important determining factor. But whichever way you look at it, the team narrative shouldn't be ignored for Chet Holmgren either, as this season has been the lone rim protector for a top 5 defensive team, as well as an efficient third scorer for the NBA's 4th best offense, which is the OKC Thunder. Overall, despite his inexperience, Holmgren is already one of the top 3 players on a Thunder team that's primed to enter the postseason with a top 2 record in the Western Conference. And as of this video, Chet is averaging almost 17 points together with 8 rebounds and 2.4 blocks per game, all while shooting an efficient 53.5% from the field and almost 38% from the 3-point line. And to top it all off, Chet is also the first rookie in NBA history to make at least 100 3-pointers while blocking at least 100 shots in the same season, and he's done all that without missing a single game for OKC all year. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's dive a little deeper into why you shouldn't sleep on the NBA's other unicorn. Let's get to it. One thing that I really find interesting is that, according to Cerebro Sports Search Tool, which is a database that allows you to compare different player seasons across different eras, the season that actually comes closest to Chet Holmgren's rookie year statistically was Rasheed Wallace's 7th NBA season in 2002, which was basically his age 27 season, right when he was at his peak as a player. And at his best, Rasheed Wallace was a top 25 player in the NBA. But what's crazy is, based on the numbers, Chet Holmgren is already playing like a top 25 to top 30 player in the NBA right now, even at just 21 years of age, as a trio of widely used publicly available advanced metrics such as the estimated plus-minus, Bucks plus-minus, as well as the PER metric, all rank Chet Holmgren as somewhere between the 23rd to the 32nd best player in the NBA currently. But the thing is, even if Chet was playing more like a top 40 to top 50 player right now, he's just a rookie anyway, and the fact that he's already been this good at just 21 speaks a lot about his potential long-term ceiling, especially while impacting the game for a winning team like OKC. But first of all, it's worth noting that being a rookie center is a huge test because of how much responsibility that position actually holds on the defensive end. But Chet has been able to immediately exceed expectations on defense thanks not only to his 7'1" frame and 7'6" wingspan, but also to his high basketball IQ, great court awareness, and ambidextrous shot blocking ability, which the numbers definitely back up. As Chet's 2.4 block per game average and 7.4 shot blocking percentage currently both rank 3rd in the NBA, only behind Wembanyama and Walker Kessler. And the thing is, Chet isn't some stat-padding young player who wants to pump up his shot-blocking numbers either, as his interior presence actually leaves a positive impact on his team's rim protection. As when Chet is on the floor, the OKC Thunder rank in the 63rd percentile in terms of opponent shooting frequency at the rim, and in the 98th percentile in terms of opponent shooting accuracy at the rim. This basically tells you that Chet's presence on the floor basically limits the number of times opponents even attempt high-efficiency shots at the rim, and even when opponents get to the paint, Chet still makes it hard for them to get buckets on the interior. Well, to be fair, you could say that there are a handful of centers that would be able to provide good interior defense when playing in a defensive ecosystem like the one in OKC. But the thing is, most of these big men are non-shooters who provide paint protection but at the cost of spacing the floor on the offensive end. However, this cannot be said for Chet Holmgren, as he's a legitimate floor spacing threat who's currently shooting almost 38% from deep on a solid volume of more than 4 attempts per game, and that's currently the 3rd most efficient 3-point mark among all qualified big man, only behind Karl Anthony Towns and Bobby Portis. And also, what you gotta love about Chet's floor spacing ability is that this opens up the lane for the best driving team in basketball, as Chet gives the Thunder a pick-and-pop threat who can open up the floor even more for OKC's drive-heavy ball handlers like SGA, Josh Giddey, and Jalen Williams. And sure, teams are usually able to neutralize big men who can shoot off the pick and pop by simply switching a smaller and quicker player on them, which usually works, unless your big man is someone like Chet Holmgren who can actually punish smaller defenders in space by being able to put the ball on the floor and by utilizing his refined driving game. Just like in this play, you can see SGA and Chet running a simple pick and pop which begins with Chet setting a screen on Shai's defender Reggie Jackson. Now the threat of Shai's attacking forces both Jokic and Jackson to play the lane, which soon forces the smaller Jackson to the late switch on Chet. Then you can see Chet taking advantage of his unbalanced defender by attacking the lane and using his length with that Euro step as he bulldozes his way into the rim with the easy dunk. Then in this play, you can see Jalen Williams on the ball being guarded by Wembanyama, which leaves Chet being defended by the smaller Jeremy Sochan. Right here, Chet starts off with a shot fake which opens up the lane for him, and even with a slight help from Wemby, you can see just how helpless Sochan is as Chet just uses his size to finish the scoop right on top of his man. But the crazy thing is, even if you try to guard Chet with bigger players in space who might be able to prevent him from getting all the way to the rim, Chet can also easily counter those guys using his solid footwork, nice handle, and a shot package from the mid-range, which includes some Dirk Nowitzki-like fadeaway jumpers which are basically unguardable. As Chet has been shooting 40.3% overall on mid-range jumpers, which ranks in the 92nd percentile of the entire NBA in terms of mid-range efficiency this season. In this possession, you can see Chet setting the high screen for Jalen Williams, leaving Chet briefly open on the pop, which forces the late switch from Gobert. Now recognizing all the open space in front of him, Chet quickly attacks Gobert and then creates space with a quick turnaround move before hitting the highly contested one-legged fadeaway shot. Then here, you can see Chet using some of that juice off the dribble against a solid big defender in Isaiah Hartenstein, and while Hartenstein is initially able to slide his feet with Chet on the drive, Chet is still able to create space with his length as he drains the jumper with a hand in his face. But what's really nice about what Chet does with a ball in his hands is that it also basically complements the Thunder's identity as a drive-heavy team that averages more drives per game than any team in the entire NBA, as Holmgren also ranks in the 59th percentile of the league in terms of drive volume, as well as in the 93rd percentile in terms of scoring efficiency off drives. Well, those are things that Chet actually does well on the floor, but what are actually the areas of the game that he's actually bad at, or better yet, should we say, what are those areas that most people think he's actually bad at? Well, obviously, coming into the NBA, everyone was worried that Holmgren's thin frame would leave him susceptible to bigger and more physical centers who love to play in the post. However, the early returns of his matchup data against most big men say otherwise. As looking at it, so far, Chet's top 4 most frequently guarded players this season in terms of partial possessions have been Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, and Alperen Şengün, a group that features 3 All-NBA caliber centers and 1 up-and-coming young big man. And looking at the numbers during their matchups, Chet has actually held each of Gobert, Davis, and Sabonis to shooting percentages that are actually significantly below their percentages for the season, while also keeping Şengün to the same as his season average. But as expected, there are still some standout bigs like Nikola Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas whose combination of size, strength, and finesse on the paint have given Chet problems this season, as evidenced by the huge jump in their shooting percentage when defended by Chet as compared to their season average. But still, you obviously gotta love the fact that Chet's still been able to hold his own against most experienced bigs he's defended. And sure, individual matchup data isn't the most perfect way to measure a player's defensive impact, but it's definitely a better way of evaluating Chet than just by merely looking at him, saying that he's skinny, and writing him off as a bad post defender, which he obviously isn't. But also, to be fair, just because Chet is better at defending traditional big men than his frame would suggest, it doesn't mean he's been the perfect big man either. For instance, it's no secret that the OKC Thunder are one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA, and they're not any better even with Chet, as OKC only ranks in the 12th percentile in terms of offensive rebounding and in the 10th percentile in terms of defensive rebounding in the minutes that Chet is on the floor. Plus, a lot of this is also due to OKC's lineups, as most of their power forwards like Jalen Williams are relatively small, which is why when Holmgren contests opponent shots, there's really no one on the backline who can constantly clean up the glass and grab the rebound for the Thunder. Well, sure, a simple solution here is that Chet just adds more body weight, but then how many pounds can he actually pack before he loses what makes him so unique as a big man? Besides, the Thunder are still succeeding even with Chet's weight deficiency, so is his frame really going to be a huge issue in the grand scheme of things for OKC? But I think the bottom line here is that most of the all-time great bigs were either elite defensive anchors who got most of their points in the paint like Tim Duncan, or offensive superstars who weren't really known for their defense like Dirk Nowitzki. But Chet Holmgren isn't like either of those archetypes. He represents a change of guard for the center position in the NBA as a defensive anchor who operates more like a guard or wing on the offensive end. Sure, some would argue that Kevin Garnett was already that sort of two-way player, but the thing is, even Garnett had more of a traditional shot diet, as Chet has currently already attempted a total of 310 three-pointers just 72 games into his NBA career, which is just 332 less than what Garnett took during his entire 21-year NBA career. Overall, a huge twist of fate led Chet Holmgren to share his rookie year with a once-in-a-lifetime prospect like Victor Wembanyama, and the early returns of the Wemby experience points to the French unicorn having a potential GOAT-level ceiling. And while no one looks at Holmgren right now with that same projection, that definitely doesn't mean that Chet Holmgren can't change the way the center position is played and become one of the greatest big men of all time in the process. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video, but what do you actually think is a realistic ceiling for Chet Holmgren? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.